You're on.
All right. Late night from Willowdale. Not from Willowdale, from St. Clair and Spadina, a few kilometers south actually. So we did a video a couple of days ago that got quite a response, and a lot of negative response. It's about Pride and defunding Pride because of their position on the police. And then the weird thing is I had sent a letter to the Star, and then someone actually responded. And
what did the letter say?
I basically said, and yes, and Chris is with me, or my old radio buddy. I basically said that, Pride is a publicly funded operation, and excluding the police is bizarre. It's nonsensical, and how long is this going to go on for? It's just silly. Pride used to be, as you say, about inclusion and diversity, and the police, the LGBT community, or the gay, I just like to call it the gay community. They can't produce all
queer
words.
community,
whatever.
Yeah.
They made a lot of strides with the police since the bathhouse raids of the early 80s, which you and I remember. And the police love being in the Pride Parade. They love it. And not just from Toronto. Police forces from all over Southern Ontario come to Pride, and they love being there. From Ottawa, from Kitchener-Waterloo, from Windsor, from Niagara, from Durham and York region. And they love being there.
I wonder what other countries would allow, or police would want to participate in Pride.
Well,
even if you had a Pride.
Well, you said it all. There was, I was going to do this at the end of our little thing on this thing here. The Star today had a big article about, reconciliation between the gay community and police. But there was since he's quoted in the Star, I can quote him on his video, obviously. Sean Ahmed, he's from Bangladesh. He said, coming from Bangladesh, he sees police in a positive light. He says, people like me come from cultures and countries where we would dream of having the police want to march with us in the Pride Parade. Yes, a lot of people would love to have the police in the Pride Parade. Look at the queer community in Moscow, in Russia, they get beat up. In Turkey, they get beat up.
So we take for granted the fact that police want to be in.
We take for granted
participate in Pride.
Police want,
and then we don't want them.
Yeah, right, right, exactly. So yes, in the same Star article, George Smitherman says, "Oh God, he remembers the Pride parades from the '80s, and the police did not want to be there, and had to be there because of security. But now the cops want to be there, and they love to be there, and they love to get sprayed, and they just love being there. And I've marshaled in a lot of Pride parades, and they love it. The police forces from all over Southern Ontario love to be there, but now we exclude them because we blame them for everything.
Well, we let the military, the Canadian Armed Forces, participate as well.
Yeah, the Canadian, they never talked about that, right? I mean, and I always said, I make the point too, the Caribbean Festival, the Caribbean Carnival, which takes place at the end of July, early August, they don't exclude the police, and the Caribbean community has as many issues.
Yeah, they have a bigger beef with the cops than
the gay community. Yeah, totally. So I wrote a letter based on the video we did a few days ago to the Star saying, cancel the whole thing. The whole thing's gotten out of control, and it's also a money grab. It's too corporate and all the things. And people were really annoyed. But then someone responded to my letter, and he basically said like, well, we need to have a safe space for the LGBTQ community, and Pride is that safe space.
Well, how is having cops in uniform not safe?
Well, he basically said the cops are a threat to. He inferred basically that the cops were a threat to spectators and Pride participants. And that's so bizarre, given what I just told you. The cops love being there.
Well, the thing is, they're allowed to be there, but they just don't want them in their uniforms.
Yeah, but they should be in their uniforms. Who cares?
So I don't think they'd be any less threatening without their uniform.
Right, they're not carrying guns.
They're not the uniform itself.
And I've seen the cops. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a cop lover. We all have our criticisms of the cops, but I've seen cops provide first aid during the Pride Parade when they're not even on official duty, okay? Because they have the skills. So, and ironically, when Black Lives Matter blocked off the parade in 2016, the last Pride Parade I got involved in, a lot of people were passing out because it was a hot day, but the parade was delayed for 2 hours because they didn't want to move off the street. And who was administering first aid? All the police that they hate. The ironies here are crazy. So, and the other thing that gentleman mentions in his letter, he says, "Oh, Pride is a private operation. We can invite who we want." But Pride isn't a private operation. It's
funded by 3 levels of government.
Right, 3 levels of government. Some corporate sponsors, which is a problem as well. Some corporate sponsors, fundraising, whatever. But basically, it's the 3 levels of government that keep Pride alive.
Your taxes are going to that.
It's your tax dollars.
Yeah.
And so they, the people of Canada, because it's all 3 levels of government, have a say in this. And the city of Toronto, who issues the street permits, who closes the roads, and then has their police provide security, like the security for Pride is provided by the Toronto Police. They have private, but it's basically provided by the Toronto Police. I mean, it's all funded by the taxpayer. So when people say, "Oh, Pride is private," it's laughable. It's so silly.
It's a sacred cow.
It's a sacred cow. People, people just don't want it. You criticize it, people go nuts, because some people in the gay community, it's religion. It's religion. It's like it's you can't criticize. You can't criticize it, because if you do, you're an apostate, and
heretic.
You're a heretic. And I spent so much, I spent a lot of money on Church Street. I volunteered in many,
You've spent years volunteering.
Yeah, years volunteering in the community, and I'm allowed to be a heretic. And a lot of people actually in the gay community hate Pride. I know people flee to Europe just to get away from it, so. And the funny thing with the Star article was about reconciliation. Well, I think one of the first things to do, if you want to reconcile, is allow the police back in the parade. And as we said, Chris, the Caribbean Carnival, which is at the Caribbean community in our city, has had a lot more issues with the police than the gay community, and yet they don't have any problems with the police. So the whole thing is a bit nonsensical, it's a bit farcical. I also think that Kathleen Wynne is our first, gay premier. She should step up and try to resolve this. And even John Tory, who loves to be on TV every day, they always have these non-committal responses when it comes to Pride and the problems with the police. They should step up and try to resolve the issue. And is this the most major issue in the world facing us? Pride and the gay community in Toronto? No, there's so many other things going on.
It shows you how far we've come. This is our biggest
Well, this is the biggest problem facing Toronto. It shows you how far we've come.
A lot of drama.
Way too much drama. But that quote in the Star by this guy, Bangladeshi immigrant to Canada, Shah Ahmed, says, and I'll read it again, and then we'll end this discussion unless you have a few more things to say. But he basically said, "People for me come from cultures and countries where we would love to have basically the police want to march with us, and And I said to Pride, I say, take no pride, Toronto. People come from all around the world where you get beat up being in a Pride parade by the police. It certainly doesn't happen here.
Perhaps we don't appreciate how far we've come.
We don't appreciate how far we come. Way from the bathhouse raids, we don't appreciate how far we've come. And
what about Maury Curtis?
Well, there was
Park.
Lots of issues there.
What was going on there?
There were lots of issues.
Mm-hmm. But what do you think was going on there, though?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I just think that the issues between police and the gay community can be resolved without going to these...
Mary
There was some nasty stuff in the park. It was open.
There's a lot of gay sex going on.
Gay sex. Whatever.
Okay, on that note.
On that note, I didn't want to leave it on that note. But the bottom line is, a lot of people are offended by criticizing Pride. You have to understand the couple of points. Pride is not a private organization. It's basically taxpayer funded. And it's the taxpayers of Canada that keep that thing alive and the event alive. It's become very corporate, and it's basically a money grab for a lot of businesses in the area. And the police, Chris, you said, we've come a long ways. The police love to be there, and that's a progress, and we should welcome it. And
we allow the armed forces there.
Yeah, exactly.
Other police forces are probably allowed in uniform. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think this was a blanket. I think this is that's a good point. I don't know I think this is a blanket thing against all cops, but that's a good point. I don't know. But
what issue would people in Toronto have with cops from Peel or Halton?
But just this hostility towards the police, right? But you make a good point, actually. Police forces that usually go to Pride from all over Southern Ontario I assume they're not welcome either, but that's a very good point. I don't know, so I'm not going to speculate on that. But I know last year the Toronto police and a lot of police forces went to New York's Pride. So,
yeah, that's true.
But the bottom line is, if the police want to be there, it's a safe space for everybody involved. It is a safer space.
You won't be hurt by the cops.
Right. You won't be hurt by the cops, and a safer space because the police are actually there.
Unless they're shooting a water gun at you.
Exactly. So let's go to another issue, Chris, that's dear to our hearts. And
Kathleen Wynne, Rob Ford, Donald Trump.
Kathleen Wynne, Rob Ford, and then we'll go to the Middle East. Kathleen Wynne I think, is going to pull off a victory.
Oh yeah.
Everyone hates her, right? A bit of massage.
I think she will.
But there's no opposition. There's no opposition.
What's her name?
Andrea Horwath is nowhere. The NDP once again is, and then as you said, Khalid, they had a very aggressive budget, moved to the left, right?
Yeah, no, I remember saying that.
And they, why would you elect the NDP when you elect the Liberals? If you go for the NDP, you might
because the NDP has better plan for dental care.
Right,
That's
and dental care is a great idea. Who the hell doesn't want dental care, right?
Yeah, why aren't the teeth included as part of the body?
Right,
under OHIP?
It's a great idea, and said no one takes the NDP seriously. That's the thing, right? And she's been nowhere for 4 years, Andrea Horwath. So the NDP is nowhere. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a total fan of the Liberals, but I think Kathleen Wynne's done a pretty good job.
Yeah,
she updated the sex ed thing, which was against all opposition. She brought in a minimum wage with a lot of opposition, and don't get me wrong, I think that fight with Tim Hortons
Tim Hortons is losing ground.
Yes, right, they're losing ground. Their brand is falling.
Yeah.
And she's done some other good things. AI, she's attracted a lot of high tech.
And where was Rob Ford in all this?
Yeah, or Doug Ford.
Doug Ford.
Well, they're one and the same, right?
Doug Ford.
Yeah. And where was Andrea Horwath? She's nowhere.
Missing in action.
She's been missing in action,
That's too bad.
So, I'm speaking too much.
Doug Ford turned down the invitation to speak at the black community. I forget the details.
Why would he do that? I mean, his brother attracted a lot of immigrant votes. I think that's just so stupid. Like, what is he doing? Like, he's got a margin of error that it's slim. And
maybe he's worried about being seen too closely with visible minorities or something. He doesn't want his brand associated with black people or Asian people or gay people.
There are more. There 55% of the people in Toronto are non-white. Like, you could probably extrapolate that down to the GTA.
He's canvassing to the people outside of Toronto at the fringes.
His base is very narrow, though, so I don't know. Etobicoke North, and some of the 905 is pretty.
But is he even known outside of the?
Well, yeah.
Toronto,
how does he play
area?
In Thunder Bay? How does he play in Timmins? How does he play in Windsor? Like,
well, he's male and he's white and he's middle aged.
Yeah,
so.
I know.
And the other choices are two women.
Yeah.
So you tell me.
Well, that's the truth. The misogyny plays.
Well, Kathleen Wynne is a man, right?
Yeah.
Misogyny, homophobia.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It plays in it. But don't forget, Kathleen Wynne did win.
Well, she's competitive and aggressive.
As a gay, as an openly gay woman. So you can't say that Ontario won't take a chance. So, but this hatred towards her, which I always thought was a little artificial, drummed up by the right.
Oh yeah,
media.
of course.
The Toronto Sun and the right wing media.
Yeah, it's a personal hate. It's an attack on her personally, even though these people have never met her.
Yeah.
Why don't they hate her policies or the direction or whatever?
Right, exactly.
They don't know anything about that. They just know that they hate her. A, because she's a woman, and B, because she's gay.
Right. But I think it's going to.
But you can't actually come out and say that. You have to use coded language to get that point across.
So, don't write her off in June, believe me. Okay, let's move on to... We can forget about federal politics for now. Although, I just had a... Actually, this video's going on a bit longer. What the hell? No, we just had a...
It's a pretty short video, actually.
Yeah, we just had an
15 minutes.
email exchange with a friend of ours, Facebook exchange with a friend of ours who lives in Victoria. And he's a big anti-pipeline, big environmentalist. Is my old roommate here in Toronto. Nice guy. I'm not going to mention his name or anything, but and he just got arrested or was protesting the Kinder Morgan expansion. And you and I have had disagreements about this because you spend a lot of time in Vancouver. But I say one pipeline expansion, what the hell? Like, we need to get some oil to market.
You said the right-of-way is already there.
The right-of-way is already there. Now, Howard, I was to mention his name, but I don't think he doesn't watch these videos, so I don't think he says, well, going through, it's a totally different landscape now. Supreme Court has made
inroads into Indigenous rights.
Yeah, Supreme Court has made judgments on inroads in Indigenous communities. And I thought, oh God, like this gets a little too much. And this is where our Prime Minister, Justin Bieber Trudeau, who's feckless, basically, who loves to dance around India and all sorts of costumes, he should stand and say, okay, one pipeline. Okay? He really should stand up for the one pipeline. Because he's canceled a couple. Good.
Well,
fine.
he had 3 to decide on a year ago. One was yes, one was no, and one was I'll leave it in your court.
Right. Keystone, Trump made that decision, so that's going through, and that's only going through a bit of Canada, so mostly through the U.S. Northern Gateway he said no to. He hasn't been a hypocrite that way. He always supported Kinder Morgan because an expansion of an existing right of way, it's already been done. Now I understand that obviously the pipeline ends in suburban Vancouver in Burnaby. But I think there are ways to make it really safe. If there's always a risk, right? There's always a risk in this stuff. But, I think there's a way to do it safe. One pipeline to the West Coast. I mean, come on. We're one country.
I think you're going to get a lot of flack on that.
Oh, yeah, people are going to hate me. But the people who hate me are the people who drive SUVs, okay? And drive cars and, you know what I mean? And fly all the time and travel. All the people who say, "Oh,
it's
Andrew,"
a false equivalency, though.
No, it isn't. If you're flying all the time, as I recall, airplanes don't rely on solar power. We don't have that technology.
But they're more fuel efficient,
right?
Person
But they still
per
need
mile
oil,
than
Chris.
than
They still need oil. Fuck, you drive a car, you drive a truck, and our friend in BC actually says he stopped driving. He lives in Victoria. He stopped driving, so I give him credit for that. Because I said to him, I don't drive. I take public transit. I live in this small apartment. I don't use it.
Oh, you see, you use oil too.
But I don't.
A bus takes.
Well, I take a subway. I take a subway which uses nuclear energy.
Okay.
Yeah, because most of the energy in Toronto is provided by nukes, by Pickering and Darlington. So that's a whole different. We're not going to go there. One pipeline. Come on. You know what? And I'm going to say this. The Indigenous community needs to reap the benefits of all this extraction. I get it. But I'm getting a little tired, going back to some of the pride stuff about, they demand apologies from the police and all that. I'm getting tired of all the apologies that we have to make. God, Brian Mulroney apologized to the Japanese community. How many times have we apologized to the
Trudeau apologized 3 or 4 times for pushing that woman in the floor of the House of Commons.
How many apologies? Okay, he should apologize once. Say that's bad, obviously. But how many apologies do we make? How many apologies have we made for Indigenous communities? And the thing is, people say, "Oh, you're a real nasty person, Andrew." But the lives of Indigenous people don't get any better. We apologize; they don't get better. I'm a guy about facts on the ground. How come Indigenous communities in this country still don't have fresh water? Stop apologizing. Give them fresh water.
True.
Stop apologizing. Give Indigenous communities fresh water. Jeez. These apologies are false and they don't go anywhere. And how many times do we have to apologize to Indigenous communities and to everybody else? And it's the same with the pride thing. Like, I don't expect a big apology from the police. Trudeau apologized to Canada on behalf of the LGBT community. Like, come on. Let's stop apologizing and just do the right thing.
In the States, they give hopes and prayers. Here we give apologies.
Oh, exactly.
I noticed thoughts and prayers were showing up again because they were talking about these. I forget what I think it was that bus that crashed in Alberta, right?
Yeah.
I noticed some thoughts and prayers coming in there, but
thoughts and prayers. Obviously, when a bunch of young people lose their lives, that makes sense.
Yeah.
14 young people lost their lives.
That's huge.
That's huge. So obviously, you're going to have lots of thoughts and prayers about that. That makes sense. But not all these apologies about.
Well, I'm just saying in light of
200-year-old.
yeah.
I was talking about all the gun violence.
Well, I'm saying in light of basically proving that gun violence doesn't exist. No, that gun violence does exist, and thoughts and prayers do nothing for it. You wonder what the transposition is when it comes to thoughts and prayers for everything else.
Like, every time there's a gun incident in the U.S. where people are massacred, the thoughts and prayers go nowhere. Bring in serious gun control. Well, that's perfectly, because that's the same with all these apologies. Thoughts and prayers go nowhere.
Yeah, if the Pope comes in and apologizes, there's no...
When your kids are massacred in high school, thoughts and prayers go nowhere. What you need is concrete gun control. Same thing with Aboriginal issues. Thoughts and prayers go nowhere. You need to provide fresh water. Like, fuck. Anyways, I rambled on. Let's move on to the last topic, which is dear to our hearts, is the Middle East. I said in the video that at the tail end of the last video that Trump says he wants to get out of Syria, and I thought, anytime the U.S. wants to withdraw from a part of the world, it's probably not a bad thing.
But they're making inroads with Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, the thing is,
the seat of terrorism.
Right. The weird thing is,
why?
Yeah, the U.S. policy in the Middle East is so. The hatred towards Iran is so intense. It is so irrational. It's not based on anything. Iran is adhering to this agreement.
I think it's actually based on a Sunni Shia split, like the difference.
Well,
which side the U.S. is taking?
They're taking the Sunni side, obviously.
They're siding with Saudi Arabia because they're Sunni, and they're against Iran because of their religion, mostly Shia.
Look, it was always traditional American policy to try to contain Iran after the fall of the Shah in 79, 80, whatever, 78, 79. And but they haven't contained Iran at all because they've adopted policies that have strengthened Iran. So their whole invading Iraq, of course, in 2003 was the stupidest thing they could ever done, because Iraq is basically now an Iranian protege. It's an Iranian territory, right? And Iran is strengthened in that part of the world. Cozying up to Saudi Arabia is well, I don't know. It's just immoral, basically. And the New York Times, they had a front page story about how MBS, the soon-to-be ruler of Saudi Arabia, bin Salman, touring the U.S. Everyone's feting him. Oprah and Morgan Freeman. He's going to all these great parties in L.A. This is a thug and a murderer. This is a guy who's responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people in Yemen. And yet he's being feted all over the United States as some sort of reformer. Thomas Friedman, who was formerly the Israeli ambassador to the New York Times, is now the Saudi ambassador to the New York Times. Like, he loves him. He's a great guy. He's a great guy. Who cares if he's murdering thousands of people in Yemen? Oh, because he's allowing women to drive in Saudi Arabia. And we're opening a movie theater there where the Black Panther is going to premiere. Saudi Arabia is a disgusting country. It's a medieval place. They still behead people. And yet this thug and murderer can be touted and flown across. He's meeting with the head of Google and Jeff Bezos, and everyone loves him. This guy should be in a jail cell. He should be indicted in The Hague for war crimes. God, but boy, they love him. The Saudi-U.S. relationship, always strong. The interesting thing is the Israeli-Saudi relationship.
Oh, you mean Saudi-Israelia?
Saudi-Israelia, exactly. The Saudis and Israelis are one. They've abandoned the Palestinians. Everyone in the Arab world has abandoned the Palestinians.
It's a quote I stole from Bart Simpson.
Yeah. Well, Bart Simpson was actually pretty smart.
Saudi-Israelia.
Saudi-Israelia. The Saudis and the Israelis have had covert relations for a long time. Now it's coming out into the open. Saudis like the military technology they get from Israel. They like the cooperation with Israeli security forces. They hate Iran. It's I don't know what's going to happen.
They're both clients of the U.S.
They're both clients of the U.S.
Yeah.
Trump wants to leave the Middle East, but of course they can't because they're so intertwined there. And I think it'd be great if Trump left Syria. But you have to do it in a measured way because there's going to be a vacuum, And they're going to abandon the Kurds once again. What's the hell going on with the Kurds? The Kurds were the strongest fighting force, and now you're going to abandon them once again? The Kurds have been abandoned by everyone for centuries.
Yeah, it doesn't suit the states, so they'll do what suits them best.
Yeah, it's a real. I hate to use this on whatever. It's a clusterfuck, and it's a mess. And but I would say I agree with Trump in a way. You know, a lot of treasure, blood and treasure, invested in the Middle East. Let's get out. Hey, let the Russians go in there and have their, let the Russians deal with it, let the Turks deal with it. Like in some ways, but the Israeli. But the thing is, the Israelis don't want the Americans to leave Syria. The Israelis feel that but the Israelis now have the Saudis. So I mean, what a mess! And what's going on in Gaza is despicable. They're just being plowed down.
IDF has a shoot to cripple policy now, where they use hollow point bullets to shatter the bones of the legs of stone throwers now, so they'll never walk.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's and Netanyahu is already crippled by an investigation. He's basically a crook, right? But and then this whole thing with the migrants, they had all these migrants. Israel was supposed to be this, remember, the chosen land, and where you love everybody. They had all the migrants come in until they're not welcome anymore, and they want to deport them. And if they deport them to their countries of origin, they'll all be killed.
I think Israel is becoming a extreme fascist country.
It's a fascist country. It's partly democratic, but it's partly fascist. And this agreement with the UN says it all. Canada was willing to take some of these migrants in from Eritrea and whatever. So were other countries. And then because part of the agreement was they had to keep some in Israel.
Coalition government.
Yeah, the right wing in Israel said no, and now we know what's going to go on. But yes. What's going on in Gaza is horrible.
Israel will become the very thing that it tried to escape from World War II.
Totally. Israel is in many ways a fascist country. Yes, it is partly democratic, but it in many ways still has this. You're right. It's the ironies everyone knows about it are incredible. So,
and I hate that slogan, Israelis have the right to defend themselves. Well, Palestinians have the right to defend themselves too. They're the ones being attacked.
Yeah, and they're the ones that don't have nuclear weapons, don't have all the weapons.
Yeah, F-16s from the States.
Yeah, we could go on and on about this.
Let's wrap it up.
But let's wrap it up because it's gone on too long. But lots of issues out there. And the thing with pride ain't the most important issue in the world. So that's it.
But gay people are important too, so...
We're all... Yes, that's true too.
So, okay. We're done?
Good night.
Okay.